You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro. Joining us today, Mr. Michael Borg. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Today's Wednesday, 30th day of July, 2025. Tomorrow's the last trading day of the month. And then the new month, starting on a Friday. Thanks for joining us, whoever you are, wherever you are. We're just glad to have you right here, right now. Michael will not be joining us today. He'll be back in the saddle, back home tomorrow. So the live training room, which has been open for the last 2 days, will be open tomorrow, and Michael will join us during the afternoon broadcast. So we're going to just dive right into our daily devotional. We're starting a new topic today. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Duck Dynasty or the podcast Unashamed. But the father of that family, Phil Robertson, this new devotional we're starting is in honor of him. He passed about a month ago, I guess it's been. But the Unashamed podcast, still happening. 3 days, I think they drop 3 episodes a week. And Uncle Si has his own podcast. But the topic of what will be in for the next 5 days, today's day 1 of 5. It's a devotional written by Phil Robertson. God is not dead. Some of you are old enough to remember. Back in the day, the New York Times published an edition, and the headline was, God is dead. Well, they got that one wrong, but they sort of have a history of that. But anyway, our scripture today is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 14 through 17. But don't let it faze you. Stick with what you've learned and believed, sure of the integrity of your teachers. This is from the Message translation. Why? You took in the sacred scriptures with your mother's milk. There's nothing like the written word of God for showing you the way to salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. Every part of Scripture is God-breathed and useful one way or another, showing us truth, exposing our rebellion, correcting our mistakes, training us to live God's way. Through the Word, we are put together and shaped up for the tasks God has for us. 2 Timothy 3, 14 through 17. We're 2,000 years away from the incarnation of Christ, who had lived a morally perfect life of love, died as a sacrifice for our sins, and beat the grave so we might beat it too one day. We're 2,000 years away from the writings of the apostles, the early followers of Christ, who taught us to live like Christ, the lives of righteous, holy love. We're 2,000 years away. But here's the thing about absolute truth. It doesn't change with time. It's as solid as petrified cypress, as immovable too. Now let me add my own line. Facts change, but the truth never does. Meditate on that. So the world can claim that God has died and his truth passed away with him. They can say all truth is relative, that it can be changed with the shifting desires of men. They can say I'm a crazy, uneducated, Bible-thumping river rat. They can say and say and say. You know what my response will be? The truth ain't a buzzkill, dude. It'll give you life, peace of mind, and make you happy, happy, happy. And just imagine it. Wouldn't it reduce addiction, crime, drug use, and all our sicknesses? Wouldn't it make us a nation of harder workers and wiser managers of time and money? Wouldn't it give us a purpose beyond making money, working for the weekend, keeping up with the Joneses? I bet it'd lead to a more moral, just, and virtuous society too. It would cut down on sex scandals and race riots. I know that much. Wouldn't it also give us eternal life? Following the truth has its benefits. Now, for those of you that don't know Phil Robertson, you're not familiar with Duck Dynasty, you can watch past episodes of Duck Dynasty. I think they're revising it. But on the Unashamed podcast, which you can find anywhere you get podcasts, go back a few months. Actually, during the last few days of his life, or last few weeks, Phil wasn't in the studio a lot, so maybe scroll back 6 months. Get a feel for who this man was, the family he raised. Now, he wasn't born in church. In fact, he was quite the wild man for a good portion of his life. I think it was in his mid-30s that he closed the bar he ran and followed Christ. Anytime you're looking for something good to listen to, just go to that podcast app and type in Unashamed. Whether you're listening to old episodes with Phil Robertson himself, or with his kids and friends who decided the show must go on. And it has. Phil, we miss you. Rest in peace. Let me give you the numbers from around the world. We'll start in the U.S. here with the cash markets, or the indices, as they're called. Always remember the cash markets, the indices, and the futures markets. Those prices are not the same. They're close, but definitely not the same. You can't actually trade the cash index. That's why man had to invent, after the index was created, man had to create derivatives so that you could actually trade the index. Things like futures and options and other stuff. Right now, and today is a busy day, or the afternoon will be. At 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll get the FOMC announcement. Nobody's expecting Powell to cut rates, even though there's been an awful lot of pressure applied. So, if he does, and I don't think he will, just even if he thinks it's the right thing to do, because of this grudge match going on between him and Trump, I think he's afraid folks would see that as a sign of weakness in some way. So, still, there will be volatility, especially at 2:30, when he will deliver a prepared statement and then take questions from the audience. That's typically when it gets really volatile. Now, The stock market, as you know, closes at 4 p.m. Eastern. Futures trade until 5 p.m. Eastern. Today, at 4:05, 5 minutes after the stock market closes, Microsoft and Meta, two of the big Mag 7 stocks, are going to report their earnings. So a hit or a miss in either direction. I suspect the final hour of futures trading today, which is typically pretty quiet, I don't think it'll be so quiet today. All right, let me refresh my data here. And the Dow is up 10 points. NASDAQ's up 77. S&P 500's up 10. And the Russell 2000 is up 12. Typically on the day of the FOMC announcement, the markets are kind of sideways and quiet. In the commodity basket, crude oil is up $1.08 again today. Man, I mentioned this yesterday because it seems like we're getting $1 gain almost every day. And when the price of crude oil moves $1, if you're a futures trader, that's worth $1,000 per contract traded. So crude is now up $1.11, trading 70.32 last. That's a gain of almost 1.75%. Gold, on the other hand, is down $34.70, a little over 1%. And silver's down 56 cents, trading 37.72 last. That's a drop of 1.5%. In the Asian markets at the close, the Nikkei dropped 19 points, Shanghai rose 6, the Hang Seng fell 347, almost 1.5%. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE up less than a point. The DAX up 55 points, the CAC up 4.5. So we had a mixed day in Asia. It was a green day for the UK. And right now, it's Green Radio Wednesday, Red Day here in the US of A. Let's go to the global news. An 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Russia's Kamchatka. Doesn't matter how many times you practice it when it comes time to actually say it. Kamchatka Peninsula, triggering tsunami waves in Russia and Japan, as well as tsunami alerts for much of the west coast. Now, there were evacuation warnings in effect for Hawaii at the time this article was written. It's a developing story, and the last I heard, they had rescinded those evacuation warnings. So keep the folks in Hawaii in your prayers. From Hawaii to New York City, authorities revealed yesterday the gunman who killed 4 people in a New York City office building Monday night had driven cross-country from Nevada to carry out the attack. They believe the 27-year-old intended to target the National Football League offices, which are in that office building, but he took the wrong elevator. All this planning, he takes the wrong elevator. He died by suicide after killing 3 people in the lobby, 1 person on the 33rd floor with a semi-automatic rifle, and a 5th person is critically wounded. A note found on the gunman's body claimed he suffered from chronic traumatic encephalopathy. There we go. That's a degenerative brain disease linked to repeated head trauma, which causes symptoms including memory loss, confusion, and aggression. The disease is common in football, with 99% of donated NFL player brains indicating CTE and the risk is correlated with years of playing the sport. CTE can only be diagnosed after death. The gunman reportedly played high school football and asked for his brain to be evaluated for CTE post-death. Never played college ball, and he certainly never played in the NFL. We talked about the railroad merger yesterday. Here's the update. Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern announced an $85 billion merger yesterday. And this will create the first coast-to-coast rail operator in the U.S. The combined company, which will retain the Union Pacific name and have a projected value of $250 billion, will unite 52,000 miles of track across 43 states, linking Union Pacific's western network to Norfolk Southern's eastern system. Company leaders said the merger will transform shipping and boost domestic manufacturing by streamlining logistics for goods ranging from grains to automobiles. They forecast $2.75 billion in annualized synergies through enhanced routes and increased intermodal services, moving goods in one container using 2 or more transport types. The new company will be headquartered in Omaha, while Atlanta remains a key hub for technology and operations. The railroads plan to file for regulatory approval within 6 months, with plans to close in early 2027. This is pending a decision from the Surface Transportation Board. Labor unions have expressed concern about service disruption, higher rates, and potential job losses, though the companies said all union jobs will be preserved. The EPA announced yesterday their proposal for repealing a 2009 endangerment finding that declared 6 key greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, to be a threat to public health and welfare. The regulation underpins a range of emissions standards affecting motor vehicles, power plants, and oil and gas operations. The endangerment finding, again we're going back to 2009, was established following a Supreme Court decision recognizing greenhouse gases as air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. The legal foundation enabled the EPA to set emissions restrictions, including a rule finalized last year that limits tailpipe emissions from passenger cars and light trucks. The transportation sector is the largest source of U.S. greenhouse gases. The proposal kicks off a 90-day public comment period. Environmental advocates warn repealing the finding would undermine efforts to address climate change and increased, remember, it's no longer called global warming. Come on, get with the times. It's now climate change. And increased risks to the environment by allowing higher pollution levels. Industry groups welcomed the proposed rollback, claiming annual consumer savings of up to $54 billion. Let's go to Wall Street. President Trump said today that goods from India will face a 25% tariff when entering the U.S. beginning Friday, September 1st. A signal that negotiations towards a larger deal have stalled ahead of his self-imposed August 1st deadline. I'm sorry, August 1st, not September 1st. India has been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. That's from a Truth Social post by Trump. Trump also accused India of buying its military equipment from Russia. Trump posted, "All things are not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting August 1st, Friday." Trump also again said he would not extend Friday's deadline for tariffs to kick in to levels outlined by deals or letters Trump has sent to country leaders. Trump said the August 1st deadline is the August 1st deadline. It stands strong and will not be extended. A big day for America. Trump confirmed this week that 15% represents the new tariff floor for countries whose rates he has been dictating to leaders in the absence of trade deals. Everybody has had plenty of opportunity to come to the table and make a deal. Now, watch. Once these tariffs actually kick in, and our economy isn't destroyed, but theirs is, they're probably not going to get quite as good a deal as they could have gotten. Meanwhile, the U.S. and China concluded their latest round of tariff and trade talks in Sweden yesterday, with both sides touting progress, but without an immediate announcement of a further tariff delay. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said President Trump would make the final call on extending the trade truce between the world's two largest economies. Well, Putin, it's time to get off the pot. And if we don't get a deal, we don't get a deal. We don't have a deal now and we're doing fine. So, Federal Reserve, as I mentioned earlier, is expected to hold interest rates steady amid internal divisions over the path of monetary policy as President Trump and other White House officials intensify their pressure on the central bank. Trump added to that pressure this morning following the release of economic data showing that gross domestic product, GDP, grew at an annualized pace of 3% in the second quarter. Trump said in a Truth Social post, "Too late," that's his nickname for Jerome Powell, "must now lower the rate." Investors will be watching today to see whether two Fed governors agree with Trump and choose to dissent from the central bank's monetary policy decision, which would mark the first time that has happened in more than 3 decades. So you better believe, while the FOMC announcement at 2 will create, maybe some volatility, once we get down to the nitty-gritty at 2:30 during the press conference, that's when we'll find out who agreed, who dissented, and the markets may go up and go down and go up and go down. And what's the best trade? Nada. Let's get some popcorn, climb up in the bleachers, watch the action down on the field. And then I would say once things calm down, then you can go back in the water. But remember, at 4:05 p.m. Eastern, we're going to get earnings from Microsoft and Meta. Now, I have no idea how their earnings are going to come in. They do, but we don't. So there could be a lot of volatility. So I'm just saying you might want to hold off until the markets reopen tonight. And you should expect the gap tonight. So probably I won't put out the CTAs before the open. They normally come out 5 minutes ahead of the Globex Open, which is 6 p.m. Eastern. But I think I'll let the gaps do what they got to do. And when things calm down, then I'll publish. Probably get them out by 7 p.m. U.S. economic growth rebounded in the second quarter after contracting for the first time in 3 years to start 2025. And the only reason there was a contraction was because everybody was so afraid of what the tariffs were going to do. All they've done is handed us lower prices, a more robust economy, and peace breaking out all over the world. As I mentioned, GDP grew at an annualized pace of 3% in the second quarter, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis advance estimate. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg had expected a 2.6% increase. So we got a surprise to the upside. Yeah, more of the same. Now, this is going to tick Trump off. Google is going to invest $6 billion to develop a 1 gigawatt data center and its power infrastructure in the southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh, in the Alphabet unit's first such investment in India, according to government sources today. Now, Trump is going to ask them why they didn't invest that money in America. And we'll see what they suffer because they made that choice. Well, we know why they made the choice. It's cheaper to do business in India. From Reuters, U.S. banking giant JP Morgan officially partnered with Coinbase today to allow customers to fund their wallets using its Chase credit cards and buy cryptocurrency on the exchange starting in fall of 2025. Once viewed warily by traditional financial institutions, the digital assets industry has gained enough traction among consumers and investors that large banks are now entering the space. From custody services to card-linked purchases, financial heavyweights are increasingly offering crypto-related products and mulling new use cases for the tokens, signaling how far the once nascent market has matured. In fact, if you're trying to get a loan, when you fill out your loan application, you can now list any crypto that you hold as an asset. And last, private employers added more jobs than expected in July, rebounding after declining for the first time in more than 2 years during June. On Wednesday, data from ADP today, this morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, showed private payrolls grew by 104,000 in July, above the 75,000 expected by economists, and well above the 23,000 job cuts seen in June. Today's data showed June's job cuts were revised lower to 23,000 from an initially reported 33,000. Let's go to the local news. Logic 247. Our 24/7 around-the-clock E-mini alert service. It's not just E-minis, it's also crude, gold, silver. Over the last 365 weeks, we've issued over 20,160 individual handcrafted alerts. And what we've averaged on a weekly basis is 20% or less of the alerts being stopped out based on simple market structure and a simple process that we teach all of our passport holders in their one-on-one mentoring sessions. Now Valerie did the recap this morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, so some of these numbers may have changed. She will update the recap this afternoon. I think I put out 2 or 3 alerts this morning after she did the recap. But at the time she did the recap, 7 a.m. Eastern, since the markets opened this past Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, we've issued a total of 37 alerts, 2 never triggered. And the reason there's those 2 never triggered, because we still had some alerts out there on the gold Q contract, which is now expired. We're now on the December contract. So can't trade an expired contract, so that's where the 2 never triggered come from. And we're still waiting on the outcome of 11. And again, some of those may have resolved themselves during today's trade. So that left 24 actionable alerts, of which so far 1 or 4% would have been stopped out, again based on simple market structure and a simple process we teach all of our passport holders in their one-on-one mentoring sessions. Every logic alert has an entry price, an initial target, in most cases a final trade to target. Well, there's always a final trade to target, but sometimes there's additional targets. I went through all the alerts that we had issued so far this week yesterday. So if you missed that, you can go to youtube.com/CFRN, where we archive each and every afternoon broadcast. Currently, there's over 2,800 daily episodes archived for your educational and viewing pleasure. Now, of course, you can trade the alerts. I couldn't stop you if I tried. But here's the deal. The purpose of the alerts is to help you learn how to read the chart. I know you can read a book. I know you can read a newspaper. You can read a textbook. You can read a medical journal and a law journal. But can you read a chart? There's no words, no sentences, no paragraphs, no punctuation. A completely different language, all visual. And if you're going to learn to trade for a living, then you need to learn how to read the chart. So 365 weeks of Logic 247. We've averaged on a weekly basis over 20,160 alerts, 20% or less being stopped out. The actual number is closer to 12%, but we want to stay humble. Now 365, that's 365 weeks. It's a long time. But years before there was a Logic 247, we had our original alert service, the concierge trade alerts, and they're different. Number one, they don't come out around the clock. The logic alerts, they can come out at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Futures trade around the clock. We have traders around the globe. Our day session is their night session and vice versa. But the CTAs are typically published 5 minutes ahead of the Globex Open. You see, the Wednesday session that we're in right now began last night at 6 p.m. Eastern. So 5 minutes ahead of the Open, all of our traders and even trial members had all of these targets at 5:55 p.m. Eastern. S&P 500, the Dow, the Russell, crude, gold, the NQ, silver. So when we go through the individual charts and you see these targets drawn out. Now today's been a kind of quiet sideways day, so we'll probably see some targets that did not get hit. But just remember, if you're one of our traders, you have this information 5 minutes before the open. Most days. Today, probably not, for the reasons I have already explained. So let's go look at the daily chart of the S&P, where things have changed slightly. After new all-time historic highs and closing highs, one after the other, after the other, after the other. There's Monday, there's Tuesday, and here's Wednesday. We talked yesterday about there being strong support right here. And I said if we close below it, that's going to speak volumes, but we didn't. We closed right on top of it. We did spike below it just a bit. And today we traded, actually we have an inside day today. Yesterday's low was 63.96 and a quarter. Today's low is 64.02. And as you can see, it's just kind of a blip there. Now, by the time futures stop trading today at 5 p.m. Eastern, I suspect we're going to see a huge green candle or a huge red candle. Or we're going to have a big doji with a wick up here and a wick down here. The daily chart's important because institutional traders, the ones who actually move price, they look at daily, weekly, and monthly charts the way you and I look at 30-minute charts, 5-minute charts, tick charts, and range charts. It has everything to do with account size. So I encourage you, whether you trade futures or stocks or crypto or Forex or ETFs, spend 2 minutes with the daily chart before you start trading on your smaller time frame, whatever it is. Number one, it gives you a free look over the shoulder of the deep pockets that actually move price. And you're able to identify where the market is most likely to find major support and major resistance. Below us, the low of this doji right here is 63.91.5, and today's low is 64.02. So that low right there, that's potential support. Obviously, yesterday's low is potential support. But as we come down, we've got the 62% fib extension. That's definitely potential support. You can see how it was resistance, 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 resistance. 1, 2, 3, 4 trading sessions. Yep. Then on the 5th day, we popped above it, put in a new all-time historic high. But I think this is really important. On the last day that we put in a new all-time historic high, look how we closed. Way off the high. But also slightly off the low. And then here's yesterday. That's a doji. And this was also what's called dark cloud cover. And that is a bearish signal. Now, the step line is attempting to cross blue and climbing. When the step line goes from the left side to the right side of blue and climbing, we typically will get a retracement back to the BBC. Pull back to the BBC holds more often than not. BBC simply stands for bull bear cross. When price crosses below that green line, we expect lower prices. And when price pulls back to the BBC, pullback holds more often than not. April 24th, we closed above that green line, the BBC. And the first pullback held, and the second one held. The third one held, the fourth one held. And we're overdue for a retracement. Price always reverts to the mean. In our case, the mean is green. We call it the BBC. I could see price and the daily BBC meeting up right around this 62% fib extension area. Again, it will depend on the Fed announcement, the Fed press conference, and earnings from both Microsoft and Meta. But just from a technical perspective, it looks like we're setting ourselves up for a retracement back to the BBC. Price always reverts to the mean. no matter what market, no matter what time frame. Now, all alerts, both the Logic 247 and the Concierge Trade alerts, are created on the 30-minute chart. The vertical line separates today, Wednesday, here's Tuesday, back here is Monday. When price rallies up to a zone, we expect resistance till proven otherwise. When price drops to a zone, we expect support until proven otherwise. The weekly trading zones are published Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. And this is what I was talking about. This is the bugle. Higher high, lower low, going nowhere. This is very treacherous trading. Hello, this is Vanessa with the Small Business Union's West Coast branch. I've been trying to connect with you or someone from your finance team. Oh, now, this one's really funny. This is I'm reading a text message that just came in. The one that came in before that, from some bizarre thing at nimley.top. Outstanding traffic ticket. Pay by July 30th to avoid suspension. Pay now link provided. I wish I had an old phone I didn't care about, just so I could click that link and see what kind of foolishness they're up to. But guys, don't ever click those things. When you get that text message, it said it claims to be from UPS and your package has been delayed, they need to click. Don't click anything. It's hard. I say, my wife, sometimes she'll come to me and she'll go, hey, this kind of looks legitimate. Should I click it? No. Did you already click it? No, I swear I didn't. Okay. Don't ever click them. And even sometimes stuff from people that, because they can spoof, and it can look like your Aunt Ida just sent you a text message. Just be careful. Because once they take hold of your machine, they could just be looking to steal your identity, or it could be a ransomware exploit, and you're going to lose it all, unless you got $1 million to send them. All right. We never hit the long target, never hit the short target. We've mostly been oscillating around this weekly zone, 6411/12. Now, we've published the zones for our members every Monday for the last 15.5 years. And this is just a big nothing burger. This low came in right here. See this low here as the market was turning up. And the high came in. Now, I would have expected resistance right here. You see how you got this wick pointing down and this wick pointing up? That little crevice in between, that's usually an important price, important area. And it may just be that some exuberance spiked it a little bit. But you see that? Wick pointing down, wick pointing up on a 30-minute chart. That creates an important, because what happened is when this candle opened, actually it opened way up here. The big red candle all the way down, but then before it closed, it bounced. And then when the next candle opened, you had a green candle, but it ran into the zone, which we expect to be resistance till proven otherwise. So really you had two big, huge red candles, but this inflection point right between the two, that's important. And if you follow the cursor over to the high of the session, you can see we spiked it just a little bit, less than a point. All right. The Dow, here's where we opened last night. We're below the BBC, but as soon as we opened, red and falling turned to blue and climbing. Now, when red and falling gets below price, it becomes potential support because it's probably on its way to becoming blue and climbing. As you can see, red and falling is bearish, blue and climbing is bullish. So price rode the back of blue and climbing up to the BBC, and it managed to poke above right there. Then we got below the BBC, then we got above, then below, then above, then below. And then we reached down and we actually hit the short target. We spiked it by a little bit. What was the low? 727. And the target was 735. There's no ticks in the Dow, it's just points. Why? I don't know. Now, we did find resistance at the zone, which is what we expect until proven otherwise. Yesterday afternoon, we found resistance there. And then on the drop today, we didn't quite get to the zone. The zone 715/720. That short target was based off this low right here from yesterday. So we definitely hit that once, twice. And so I think one of the CTAs I put out this morning was 755 down to 735 and then down to the zone. I can't tell if that wick back there, 714, yeah. You see the wick back there behind the short target? It touched the zone. Actually overshot it. The zone is 715/720 and that low 714. So we went 1 point over the zone. And whenever the market finds support, like it did here at the target, it's going to go look for resistance, which it found at the zone. When the market finds resistance, it's going to go look for support, which it found at the zone. So we got back above the BBC and we've had our first retracement. Now, would I recommend trading this? No. In fact, the closer we get to the Fed announcement, you probably should just put the mouse in the wall safe or give it to your spouse. Say, don't give me this back until tonight. Because when the markets, you're seeing these huge candles and there's all this action, it's like, it's hard to resist. But I tell you what will cure you. Trading it a couple times. That'll cure you. Oh, you'll get lucky one time and you'll go, oh yeah, I'm going to become a news trader. And then, well, you probably already know how the story ends. Looks to me like, even though we're above the BBC and we just dipped below it, we got red and falling right below us and the step line, so that's potential support. That's potential support. I would say that right now, 44,765 down to 735, that would be 30 points. That's probably a pretty good trade. $85 to 905, under normal market conditions, that would be a good trade as well. The Russell. This was the opening candle last night. Again, everybody had the targets 5 minutes before the open. We've got that blue and climbing, and when blue and climbing is chasing price, there's a good chance it's going to trade through the BBC. Consolidated for an hour and a half right at the zone. But then you see this high from yesterday, right here. That pretty much capped the action. and then blue and climbing directly above price. That's resistance. So we come back to the zone where we find support for 1, 2, 3, 4 30-minute candles. That would be 2 hours. And then support again, and then support again. We had resistance at the long target, resistance at the long target. Third time we punched through, actually got through the zone. Now this candle closed right here, and then it opened here and it was green right up to, now follow the horizontal line on my cursor, the previous bearish cross. When you that's when the red line gets below the green line. When you have a bearish cross that leads to an extended move, the first time price revisits that area will almost always be good resistance. You see it? Learn to watch for that. Okay. Now, I don't suggest building a strategy around it, but be aware of it so that when it happens, let's say you were in this move here, you should know that you're going to have potential resistance here. And it sent price all the way back to the BBC and the pullback held. Pullback held, and it held, and it held, and it held, and it held. Now we've overcome that area, closed here. And so 2276 to 2278. That would be a good opportunity, and that probably will get filled during the afternoon excitement. And I do believe there's a CTA or a Logic 247 alert out there from 2276 to 2278. On the NQ, man, look at that. Price just hugged the zone all night, end of the morning. And we tried to get up to the long target, but we didn't quite get there. Got up to 547, and the target was at 551. But we may still get there once the fireworks start. Now, the long target is based off of this bearish cross right here. The short target is based off this bullish cross. Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. This is a bullish cross from last Friday. And we very well may see that today. Although it looks like with the NQ, the bias is to the upside. I mean, we do have two tech behemoths reporting. You've got the target based off the bearish cross. You got the zone as potential resistance. And then you got this outlier here. Okay. Definitely potential resistance there. This area here where blue turned to red. Yeah. Be careful around that area as well. Remember, these are the zones that were published Monday morning, 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Now we've traded above. I mean, crude's risen $1 the last, I think, 3 days, which is, to say the least, unusual. It's $3,000 per contract traded. So we're now above the highest weekly zone. So by close of business on Friday, based on the last 15.5 years of history, we expect price to be at or below the highest weekly zone. Could this be a week that it doesn't happen? Yeah, it's possible. It has happened before. Gold, we are on the December contract. Now this is cool. These zones were created for the Q contract. We didn't roll to the Z contract until yesterday. This was the open last night. We're above the BBC, so we expect higher prices. So we ran right up to the long target. Okay. You only need a $1 move in gold to get your goal for the day. So getting in at 33.88. What's the high? The high is 88.3. I don't think so. That's what it says. Sure looks like it's touching that to me. I guess it isn't. Okay. Anyway. Sure, we hit it here. Yep. In fact, we exceeded it by 3 ticks. But again, you only need a $1 move. Okay. 33.60 to 33.61. That's $100 per contract traded. So we hit the long target, rolled over, hit the short target, and then we found support at the zone, just like we did yesterday. Okay. And we got a little bounce, and then we continued. And then we found support at the weekly trading zone that was created for the Q contract. How's that possible? And how's all this possible? Because important prices, important areas are almost always tested, regardless of the market, regardless of the contract. Is this the first time we've ever seen this? No. And red and falling. Now right here, the step line crossed red and falling. So what does that tell us? Price is going to try and work its way back up to the BBC. Now this area here, you've got the zone, you've got the BBC, and you've got the underside of the short target. So that's resistance times 3. Now if you choose to trade this on the way up, you can, but that's a counter trend trade because price is below the BBC. In the Logic 247 channel I mentioned, of course, there's 20,160 something individual alerts. Every one of them is a trend trade as defined by the 30-minute chart. In other words, I would never, even though I know when the step line crosses, price is going to attempt to retrace to the BBC. That's counter trend. Okay. Now there's nothing wrong with counter trend trading. Okay. But every one of those logic alerts is a trend trade as defined by the 30-minute chart, the 30-minute BBC. Had I done counter trend trades as well, there'd probably be 40,000 alerts. But a counter trend trade just does not have the same high probability as a trend trade. Okay. It's not that I doubt we'll get to the BBC, but we could start going sideways and then the BBC drops. You got potential resistance here, here, and here. So the way I view it is I'm going to let price do its thing, wait for it to hit the BBC, and then if I get a down close coming off the BBC, then I'll look for short opportunities. That's how I've done it for 365 weeks, I guess it is. Okay. All right. And silver. Man, silver just took a whooping. We had a couple of sideways days, Monday and Tuesday, but today we really fell out of bed. This was the open last night. We got below the BBC, and we dropped right to the short target, which obviously is based off these lows right here. Okay. We actually spiked it a little bit, down to right here. Support sends us to resistance. The pullback held. Resistance sends us looking for support. We consolidated for hours at that short target area. Important price, important area. And then we got a leg down, a retracement, We hit the zone, which we expect to be support until proven otherwise. We went 2 days without touching a zone. That's very unusual. Now the zone's 3783/84. You only need 2 pennies to get your goal for the day in silver. This candle opened at 38.17. Is that right? Let's try it again. 38.07. Is that right? Yeah, we opened at 38.07 and we dropped to 37.85. So that's 15 and 7, 22. That candle right there, from the entry to the low, that's $1,100 per contract traded. Now we hit the zone and bounced, then we traded through it, and then we came back up and found resistance. Only one of 3 things happens when price encounters a weekly zone. 70% of the time is consolidation. 20% of the time is rejection. 10% of the time, the slice. That's when the 30-minute candle slices through a zone like it's not even there. When that happens and the move runs out of steam, price will typically retrace back to the zone it sliced through, continue in the direction of the slice. Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. This was Friday, so we had different zones, but you could see what happened. And then it continued. But it was a different zone last week, so. All right, and now the step line is crossed, so look for a move back up to the VVC. But at this point, it's time to put the mouse away. It's only 1 o'clock. We still got an hour before the Fed announcement. And it looks like the YouTube feed went dead. So anybody listening via YouTube, you probably had a lot of dead space there. Looks like it's working again. Yeah. All right. Sometimes these things happen. To become a member, send an email to support@cfrn.net. We'll teach you everything we know. 2 hours of live training every trading day. On top of that, private one-on-one mentoring. As a passport holder, the strategy you learn, the indicators you own are fluid across all markets and all time frames. Price flows the same, whether it's futures, stocks, crypto, Forex, ETFs. Price goes from support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over again and again. It's a never-ending cycle. It's just how markets work. Nobody knows what's going to happen next in the market. Not man, nor machine, nor algorithm, or AI. There's just too many factors involved. But you can know with a great degree of certainty what the next high probability move is. Now, that's as different as night and day. If somebody says, I know what's going to happen, or I know what the next high probability thing is, that's night and day, right? Okay. Anyway, as a passport holder, you get the Logic 247 alerts around the clock, the concierge trade alerts the second they're published each evening. Again, they probably won't come out tonight until about 7 p.m., maybe 6:45. I just want to see how the market reacts to these earning reports from Microsoft and Meta. On Monday mornings at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, you'll get the weekly trading zones. Once they're published, they're carved in stone the entire week. Even if a contract rolls over midweek, as we saw with gold, the zones don't change. They're based on market structure. Okay. Thursday afternoons, you get an invitation to attend the members only workshop. every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then you get the private keys, or the keys that open all the private channels in Telegram. Now, when you're on the trial, there are public channels, so you can get the alerts, both Logic and the CTAs. You can ask questions of our traders. But once you actually become a member, a passport holder, you'll get the keys that unlock all the private channels in Telegram, the members only discussion group, etc. Everything a trader needs, all under one roof, one low price. Just send Valerie an email, support@cfrn.net, and just say, I want to become a member. She'll send you an email that goes into detail, everything I just said about what it means, what you get when you become a passport holder. What you get is what 9 out of 10 traders don't have. You get somebody who will actually teach you how to trade. Not just sell you some indicators, a PDF, and wish you the best. We're talking about hands-on training. In the group for 2 hours every day, interactive environment, and individually, one-on-one. It's hard to find that. I looked. That's why we did it. Support@cfrn.net. Send that email. Don't delay. All right, let's wrap this up with our good word for the day. Yesterday we talked about the fact, no matter how naughty you've been, God still loves you. Today, beware of covetousness. Psalm 84:11. No good thing will he withhold from those who walk uprightly. Covetousness will rob you of contentment. And if you don't know what covetousness means, you don't have to say it, just learn what it means. It means wanting what somebody else has. Your neighbor got a new car, well, you deserve a new car. Or the guy in the cubicle next to you just got a promotion, you deserve a promotion. If you spend your life always wanting what somebody else has, instead of just enjoying what God has already blessed you with, your time will come, your time for the car, your time for the promotion, if that's God's will for your life. Got to accept that wherever you're at in life, that is God's will for your life, right then, right there. And if things aren't going so well, then God's trying to teach you a lesson so you can go to the next class and learn that lesson. Life is a series of lessons, one after the other. So, covetousness, I've said that a million times, and now suddenly I can't say it, will rob you of contentment. It works like this. You browse through a home decorating magazine, and the home you were thankful for an hour ago suddenly seems ramshackle. Or you see an ad on TV for a new car, and the car in your driveway suddenly looks like an old banger. God expects you to have goals for your life and to provide for your family, but beware of coveting things so much that you become obsessed with how to get them. When Israel went to war with Jericho, God told them everything in the city was to be destroyed. So afterwards, when Israel stormed the small town of Ai and met with a humiliating defeat, Joshua was devastated. When he asked God why they had lost the battle, he told him it was because of sin in the Israelite camp. When Joshua investigated, Achan, one of his soldiers, confessed, "When I saw the spoils, I coveted them and took them." That's Joshua 7:21. When Achan tried to conceal his sin, by hiding the stolen goods in his tent. It cost him his family and their lives. When you covet, you question God's wisdom, willingness, and ability to provide for you. Don't do it. When you find yourself wanting something, pray about it and trust God to give it to you if it's His will. His word assures us, Psalm 84:11, no good thing will He uphold from those who walk uprightly. God knows what's good for you and what's not. And all your pleading won't change His mind. But when your desire is to do His will, He promised that God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. 2 Corinthians 9:8. Even Jesus had His dark moment in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knew what was coming. His disciples didn't, but Jesus did. And He prayed, Father, if there's any way that you can take this cup, but not my will, but your will be done. If you align your prayers with God's will for your life, things you desire will come to pass. And you might say, well, I'm not sure what God's will is for my life. Well, when's the last time you spoke to Him? He's waiting to speak to you right now. Whatever it is, whatever's bothering you, bugging you, weighing you down, tormenting you, God has the answer. He has the solution. He created you with a purpose for your life. Now, you might be on track, you might be slightly off track, and you might be going in the opposite direction. The way to find out is talk to Him. Or as some people call it, pray. And that's our good word for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.